Ancient technology. Comments. Why are stone vases round in ancient Egypt? Among other places, but specifically in Egypt, because we notice a lot of their vases are cylinder shaped, round. And something I contemplated that the reason they would be round, cylinder shaped, is because when they're being made in a circular pattern. Same thing when you think of pottery. Why is pottery round? Right? Cylinder shape. It's because it's on a pottery wheel and you spin the pottery wheel when you make the pots. Right? Because there's different shapes you can make containers out of. You can make vases in any shape you want. Right? You can make a vase a pyramid shape. You can make a vase a box shape. Right? A rectangle, a triangle, a star. So many different shapes you can make vases in. You can even make vases that look like Anubis, right? So there's so many different things you can do, so many different shapes you could use. And some shapes are easier, faster to do, require less skill to do, and materials to make. Because think about this logically. What's easier to do without a lathe, without some type of spinning technology, right? A square, right? A block. You can take a piece of stone and you can chip it and flatten it, right? You can cut one side, cut another side, and make four sides. So now you have a block. Then you can drill a hole in it, which, yeah, typically will be circular. Why would the hole be circular? Because you're spinning. If you had some type of device that can make a square circle, or a square hole, which does exist in modern day times, then you have square. But when you're drilling a hole, on average, it tends to be a circle because you're spinning, right? You're using a spinning tool, right? A drill. So because of that shape, just the shape alone gives you a clue to how it was made, right? Right? Shape makes form, right? Form makes shape. So it's only logical to assume that a lot of stone vases were made on a lathe, even if we don't find the lathe itself, even if we don't find any documentation or stone carvings on a wall in a temple somewhere saying, hey, look, we have this device that we call whatever we call it, right? A lathe or whatever, or wheel of destiny, whatever the Egyptians want to call it. The point is, they're not, it's like, just because we don't have those things does not mean that a lathe couldn't exist. Because the way I do things, and even other people do this as well, we look at the final product and then we work backwards, right? In other words, it's like a math problem, right? 2 plus 2 equals 4. But you're looking at the math problem as just equals 4. It's like, okay, I see the solution. I see the outcome. The outcome is 4. So what was the problem? Was it 2 plus 2? Or was it 3 plus 1? Or was it 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1, right? Or was it 5 minus 1? See, different possibilities. And that's where it gets a little confusing, because there's more than one way to get to that outcome. One of the things I hate seeing archaeologists do is be closed-minded and have this idea of like, no, there's only one way of doing something. And they want to say that stone vases in Egypt was done by hand and there was no lathe technology. As you can see in this person's comment, trying to say that there was no lathe in pre-dynastic Egypt. It's like, well, you're assuming you're assuming, you don't have no definitive fact, because absence of a lathe is not evidence that a lathe never existed. It just means, well, we can't find it for whatever reasons. Maybe they destroyed it. They were like, you know what? We don't need this technology anymore. Let's destroy it. Let's recycle it. And that's why it's missing. That's why we can't find it. Not that it never existed. It's just that they got rid of it. right? You don't know what happened. We can only assume. That's why I'm going with the whole thing, trying to point out like the vases themselves let you know that what happened to them. Something was spinning. Now, there's a high probability that it was never like a lathe, like the way we think a lathe is. It was more of a, more like a pottery wheel. So so it was more like they spun the vase on something. They were spinning it on something, rotating it on something, and working on it. It could be hand rotated, right, hand operated. So then it'd still be handmade as opposed to being like a high technology or some type of power tool. I'm not saying that the lathe that they used was a power tool specifically, or that the pottery wheel that they were using was powered. Can it be powered? Yes, of course. But you can also hand operate a lathe or pottery wheel. The point is, they definitely use something to spin it, right? Another possibility is that I like this concept because some people don't even think this way. Is the pottery itself? I mean, the stone vase itself is the lathe. Because all you have to do is use the vase itself, right? Spin it, rotate it on a tool. So what I mean by that is you don't use the tool on the vase, you use the vase on the tool. For example, instead of hitting the chisel against a stone, right, against a stone vase, you use the stone vase and you hit the chisel with the stone vase. You see what I'm saying? Where you don't use the tool directly onto the stone. You use the stone against the tool. And since the tool is stronger, right, it's tougher, it should chip away at the stone. So it's a reverse way of doing things. And that's all I'm trying to point out is that they definitely use something to produce these vases. And the vases themselves is evidence of technique or technology, which are one and the same, by the way. Technology is just a way of saying it's we created something that can use a technique. They can use a method of doing something. Like for example, I take a hammer and I swing it. Right, there's a technique to swinging the hammer to make it operate. Right, but you can connect that to a power source like a water wheel and have the water wheel swing the hammer in a specific technique, right? And we call that technology, right? Which is technique in a in an ology type of way, right? You see what I'm trying to get there, right? So the point is that's what technology really means. Is the idea of it's a technique. It's a method of doing something. It's a process. Whether you do it the process by hand, right? You swing the hammer, or you use a machine to swing the hammer. The outcome is still the same. A hammer is swinging, and a hammer is doing what hammers do, right? So there's a high possibility that you're using the vase and you're spinning the vase onto something, onto a tool, a stationary tool. The tool doesn't move, but the vase moves, and you move the vase, and that's how you lathe, right? You lathe on a tool, as opposed to using a actual lathe that holds the vase, spins it, and then you put the tool against it and press the tool against it in order to try to get you know carve it and stuff like that, right? To get the outcome you want. So instead of using like a copper saw and sand and whatnot, like other people like to say when it comes to cutting stuff, cutting stone, instead you're using the stone vase with sand, still using sand, right? In this example, with some water, and then you're rubbing the vase. So you're rubbing the vase, using the vase like it's the copper saw, right? In this example, and then you're working it. So you're using the vase itself as the tool, basically, is what I'm trying to say. You're using the vase as the tool. The vase is the lathe, and you're using that, and that's how you can lathe something. That's how you can make something in a and get a lathe outcome without actually having an actual lathe. So even if we want to say, oh, they didn't have the lathe device, it's like, well, maybe this method, this technique, is what they use. That they rubbed, right, the vase against a tool that was stationary, and that's how they got the outcome. The outcome still looks like a lathe was used, is what I'm trying to say. So it looks like a lathe was used. So one of two possibilities: it was the lathe was used, or you use the technique that produces lathe outcomes, like I just described, you spinning the vase by hand or with some other type of thing. Let's say you if you use a wheel, then obviously it's more of a lathe. But you get the idea. It's like you spinning the vase itself means you're the lathe, right? That's the irony, because the point of a lathe is it's supposed to replace you anyway, right? It's supposed to do something you're supposed to do, which is you're supposed to move the vase around so you can work on it, right? So lathe is just supposed to be a mechanical version of you. It's supposed to do a function that that you want to do or you can do, but it's going to do it for you. Just like a power drill, anybody can drill a hole with the proper tool, of course, proper material, but a power drill does it faster and better, right? And some people are faster than others when it comes to drilling by hand, but the thing is, a power drill does what you can already do, which is drill a hole, but it can just do it much faster, right? So that's the only purpose of technology and tools, is to do stuff that we normally can do, or at least a process, you know. Like light bulbs, the purpose of a light bulb is to do what the sun does, which is produce light, right? Think about that. The purpose of a light bulb is just to do what the sun does, produce light. By converting heat into light source. So the same thing with this, right? So of course we kept going back and forth. And I noticed he deleted his comments, but I screenshotted it, so here's the evidence of our back and forth so you can see what he says. And of course he's trying to say there's no evidence of lathe in ancient Egypt until 1300 BC, which one proves that they did have lathe at least at some point, like some evidence, which I still want to see it, because I don't remember any actual evidence of a lathe in Egypt, period. But the fact that he said there was no evidence until a certain point, which means there is a lathe. I'm like, there's no evidence of, me personally is like, there's no actual evidence of the lathe itself. We just know of the concept of a lathe. I have not seen no evidence of an Egyptian lathe. I would like to see one. So I'm going to go do some Google searching, right, and try to see if I can find an Egyptian lathe, because this person's implying that Egypt at some point did have lathe. And it's like, okay, well, I want to find that information. But so far, yeah, the lathe is lost, as it were. But the outcome of what a lathe can produce isn't lost. It does exist. The stone vases exist, and they look like they were lathe. Or the main point is you can obviously make them with a lathe. So that hints indirectly that a lathe did exist, right? Back to that math problem, right? The outcome is 4, but you don't know what created the 4, because there's different ways to create the 4. I always use the example of, there's more than one way to skin a cat. But when it comes to like figure out the past, like how the stone faces were made, we're curious about how the cat was skinned. What was the specific method? We know there's multiple ways to skin a cat. We just want to know the one way, right? So when it comes to the stone vases, we want to know, how did they do it? Did they do it by hand? Was it a combination of hand and machine? Was it just machine? Like that's the question. What was the specific method? Was there another method? And that's the thing. It's okay to be open-minded to possibilities of what happened, because we don't know definitively what happened, how the vases were made. We just know the outcome, which is 4, right? And we're trying to figure out what was the problem, right? What was the mathematical problem that led to the solution, which was 4. Same thing with the vases. It's like we're trying to figure out what caused the vases to exist, what was used to make it, what was the method. Because one, it should be cool to know how the vases were made so we can have the knowledge in case we want to make vases. Because I would like to make some vases, I would like to own some vases, and I do plan to make some vases soon. So, you know, I just got my copper chisel, or my copper rod that I'm gonna use as a chisel. So, right, for experimental purposes. But the point is like, hey, soon I will do a core. I would drill, a core out of my red granite, and then I'll take that core and make a vase out of it. Speaking of that, what's ironic is I have this. Well, it shouldn't be a theory, but this idea that um, the reason why we find very little core from tube drilling is that they get recycled and turned into vases. So that's part of why they're cylinder shaped or round. Is because when you make the cores, it's a round, right? They're round shaped. They're cylinder shaped. So they already start off round, and then you just carve and shape it into a vase. So there's already that. But further proven, there's like, well, since it's already a cylinder shape and it spins, right? You can spin it, is what I'm saying, because it's round. Why wouldn't it be attached to like a lathe and spun? Or, like I said, you spin the vase itself onto a tool and then lathe it that way, right? So again, it's just a process of lathing. So it's clear to me that definitely was some form of lathing, like as in you either use a lathe machine, a machine that spins tools against the the stone, right, the vase, or that spins the vase for you and you use tools by hand on it, or you spin by hand the vase onto a tool, or a combination of you spinning the vase on a tool and the tool is also spinning, right? That could be a combination, because that would double the process if you had a spinning drill, right, or a spinning tool, and then turned the stone vase onto the spinning tool, basically like a grinder, and then you take the vase and then you put it onto the grinder, and it starts grinding, and then you start turning slowly the vase while it's grinding, so you get the idea. So then a grinder. So what if what they had was a grinder, a powered grinder, or a hand operated grinder, or a foot pedal operated grinder, or a water wheel powered grinder, or air powered grinder, and the list goes on, right? So it's like, we don't know, because there's a possibility that they probably did do that. It probably was a grinder. So it's like, now we know. It wasn't a lathe. It wasn't, hand turned. It wasn't a pottery wheel. It was, a power tool per se. It was a grinder. It's like, oh, they took a stone wheel and they spun it by hand or by feet or whatever, right? Manpower, and then they put the stone on it and they worked it that way. It's like, oh, that's how they did it. And that's the thing. Ultimately, we want to find out is how did they do it? Because currently, the experts, they try to say that, oh, it was done by hands, like chisels and sand and stuff. It's like, okay, possible. That is one way of doing it, but is it really the way it was done? Because realistically, if we're going to do stuff like that, if we're going to use sand and whatnot, you're better off making a square vase. Why are we making round, circular vase? That's just extra work. That's extra effort to make it that way. Plus, does it have to be round? Does it have to be round? Think about it. Does the vase have to be round? Because what's the purpose of the vase? If the vase is just to hold liquid, any shape can hold liquid. It's a cylinder or a round shape of vase. It's not the only way to hold liquid. You can hold liquid within a square, within a triangle, within a star, within a octagon, right? Right. So it's just something to contemplate, to think about. And it's easier to like polish a flat surface than a round surface, because a round surface you have to spin it in order to polish the round surface. So again, notice the pattern of the stuff I'm talking about, the points that I'm making, the things that I'm saying. You notice there's a repetition where it's like, yeah, something spinning is involved. So saying, oh, there was no wave is very ignorant to say, because it's like, okay, you're just talking just for the sake of talking. You have no definitive evidence that of when it comes to vase. When you look at the